The dollar hegemony is once again under serious crisis. But what again accelerated the efforts to cause a decline in the dollar monopoly? The U.S. involvement in the Israel-Hamas conflict has sparked anger that is resulting in economic decline in the U.S. The entire Middle East has gathered against the U.S. Saudi Arabia, most importantly, has signed deals with China to turn to the yuan as a trade currency. Even more surprising is that U.S. allies are willing to do this. But how will the U.S. dollar hegemony end by this action? Let's find out. Welcome back to another exciting episode of our channel. Innovation Diary brings you China's innovation stories, projects, and growing influence in different parts of the world. If you are new to the channel and enjoy learning about fast-paced modernity, especially China's development and growing power, you will find our videos intriguing. In this video, we will discuss how the recent Israel-Hamas conflict has contributed to the US dollar losing its value. We will also talk about the entire middle role in this. Watch the video till the very end to know how the US is losing its status, all because of its involvement in the Israel-Hamas conflict. Let's get started. The US dollar is in trouble. The challenges for the dollar amplified on November 20th, 2023, when China and Saudi Arabia took a significant step in enhancing their financial cooperation by signing a local currency swap agreement. This agreement will last 3 years, valued at 50 billion yuan, equivalent to $6.93 billion or 26 billion Saudi riyals. The primary goals of this deal are to fortify financial ties, encourage the use of local currencies, and boost trade and investment between the two nations. The currency swap agreement is designed to reduce currency risks for both China and Saudi Arabia. This means there is a higher likelihood of the two countries using each other's currencies in their transactions, making trade more efficient and secure. Saudi Arabia, known as the world's leading oil exporter, has China as its largest customer, with the latter importing approximately $65 billion worth of Saudi crude oil in 2022. China has actively promoted its currency, the yuan, in transactions with major energy and commodity exporters. The currency swap agreement with Saudi Arabia is crucial in this direction, strengthening economic ties and facilitating smoother financial transactions between the two nations. This deal holds additional significance as it marks the 30th currency swap agreement signed by the People's Bank of China (PBOC) over the past decade. China's ongoing efforts to strengthen connections with countries in the Middle East and North Africa are evident in these agreements, reflecting its commitment to expanding its influence in the region. While it may be understandable why China, as a competitor to the United States, is taking such a stance, the question arises, why is Saudi Arabia doing the same? The answer to this question lies in the aftermath of the Israel-Hamas conflict, which has played a pivotal role in Saudi Arabia's swift move to reduce reliance on the US dollar. The United States' strong support for Israel during the conflict has generated discontent in the entire Middle East region. Many nations in the Middle East now perceive the United States as aligning with a country that they believe is in the wrong. This perception has fueled a desire among these nations, including Saudi Arabia, to seek alternatives and reduce dependence on the US dollar. The recent events surrounding the Israel-Hamas conflict have, in a way, acted as a catalyst for Saudi Arabia to expedite its efforts in challenging the hegemony of the US dollar. The discontent with the United States' stance in the conflict has prompted Saudi Arabia to take a stand and send a message. By diversifying away from the dollar, they aim to express their dissatisfaction and teach the US a lesson. So Saudi Arabia's decision to move away from the dollar is not solely about economic considerations, but is also influenced by geopolitical factors. The desire to assert independence, express dissatisfaction with perceived unjust alliances, and send a clear message to the United States have all played a role in Saudi Arabia's quick action to challenge the dominance of the US dollar. While economic considerations are often at the forefront of such decisions, geopolitical events can significantly shape a nation's stance on global currencies. The Israel-Hamas conflict has highlighted the complexities of global alliances and has become a driving force for nations like Saudi Arabia to reevaluate their reliance on the US dollar. How will this decision be further put into action? Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more videos about China's development, power, and influence on the world. Let's continue now. To make the impact of the declining dollar influence even stronger, there is talk about Saudi Arabia and China considering an oil for yuan trade. This means that instead of using the US dollar as the usual currency for oil transactions, Saudi Arabia is considering using the Chinese yuan. If this happens, it could bring about a big change in how countries worldwide do business. The significance of such a change is really important. For a long time, the US dollar has been the main currency used in international trade and transactions, especially when buying and selling oil. However, Saudi Arabia is thinking about using the Chinese yuan, and the possibility of an oil for yuan trade shows that a major shift might occur in global business transactions. This shift indicates a move away from the usual dominance of the US dollar. This change is a big deal. The US dollar has always been the go-to currency for countries when they trade with each other, especially in the important oil market. But now, with Saudi Arabia considering transactions in yuan and exploring new ways of doing business, it suggests a significant change in how international trade works. As countries look for ways to mix things up and try different ways of trading, the way business is done internationally is changing. Saudi Arabia's decision to use the yuan is part of a bigger story where countries are actively considering using other currencies instead of the US dollar. This move towards trying different things shows that the world's economic landscape is changing and hints at a possible reorganization of how global money matters are handled. So the Chinese yuan is becoming an important player in the world of money, and examples like Japan creating a currency swap line with China highlight its growing role. More and more countries are showing interest in using currencies other than the US dollar for international trade. This shift is happening as nations look for ways to reduce risks linked to depending too much on one powerful currency. One notable example is Japan, which has set up a currency swap line with China. This move indicates that countries are exploring different currencies for international transactions. They are doing this to avoid the risks of relying too heavily on a single dominant currency, like the US dollar. The Chinese government has actively encouraged the use of the yuan in international trade. Countries are taking notice, and the yuan's role in global trade and finance is rising. This means that more and more countries are considering using the Chinese yuan for their international dealings, marking a significant change in the traditional way of doing business. As countries diversify and explore new options, the Chinese yuan is emerging as a noteworthy choice for international trade. The growing role of the yuan suggests a shift in how countries handle their money matters globally. It also indicates a trend where nations are moving away from relying solely on the US dollar, signaling a broader transformation in international finance. Now the question is, what will happen to the US if yuan becomes the new global currency after the Israel-Hamas conflict? As discussions arise about the potential for the Chinese yuan to become the new global currency, especially in the aftermath of the Israel-Hamas conflict, many wonder about the impact on the United States. If the yuan were to take on this role, it could lead to several significant changes in the global economic landscape. Firstly, a shift from the US dollar to the yuan as the new global currency could affect the value and stability of the dollar. As the world's current primary reserve currency, the US dollar is crucial in international trade and finance. If the yuan were to replace it, the dollar might experience changes in its value, which could have repercussions for the United States' economic standing. Moreover, the global financial system, which has long been centered around the US dollar, might transform. The rise of the yuan could adjust how countries conduct trade, investments, and various financial transactions. This shift might impact the United States' influence on global economic affairs. Additionally, the geopolitical dynamics between the United States and China could see alterations. The designation of the yuan as the new global currency might enhance China's economic and geopolitical influence on the world stage. This could lead to changes in international relations and how countries align themselves economically. So, after the involvement in the Israel-Hamas conflict, the US is in some serious trouble. We would like to take a moment here and appreciate you all for commenting and sharing your opinions. Your insights always impress us. Do you think the yuan will replace the US dollar if the US continues actions that offend nations? Why are the US's allies even willing to switch to yuan? Let us know in the comments section if the dollar hegemony will end before 2024. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to get exclusive videos about how phenomenally China is developing and growing its influence over the world. Until the next video, stay tuned.